Good morning, everybody. Sorry we're running late a little bit. Got a lot to cover today. We had a great day yesterday. I've got a lot of comics that I picked up. I want to talk about that too. Today we're going to talk about the process, though, of comics. And Glenn and I want to go over, from what we know and the whole experience of how these little tiny books have made such an impact on us through our lives. We want to show you how they're made. So we'll get to it.
Welcome to the Comics Unlimited podcast with your hosts, Glenn B. Fleming and Ted Davis.
Good morning and welcome to Comics Unlimited. I'm Ted
Morning,
Davies.
everybody. Yeah, I'm Glenn Fleming. Good morning, everybody. Sorry we're a bit late, but we're just having a walk down memory lane there for a second. In fact, let's skip the show. Let's just show me them comics again.
We got there's a lot of comics that we were talking about. It got kind of
Can I just say for the record for everybody, I now hate Ted Davis. Because of what he's just shown me. He showed me two views. He showed me what I used to have and what I don't have any longer.
Hey man, those comics are all right. I'm hoping that everybody here is a good everybody here I know collects comics. And I know that we're I'm showing not to brag. I'm showing to share because there's things that it's such a cool, and you're not angry with people when I know you say it in jest, because it's like if you had this or that, or I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm glad that you had that in your collection or whatever. That's what it's about. It's not about bragging.
But we have a saying: if you've got it, flaunt it.
Yeah, right. We've got that saying too.
Right.
It means something different, but okay.
Yeah. Well, I was going sideways with it.
Good morning, everybody. Actually, let's say, like I said, good morning to Eric, Carl, and Eric again. So we've got Donna. We've got who else? We got Ryan. Hey, hello. Thank you for sharing that, sir. If you guys could like and share this out, that would be awesome. Jody, what's up, man? How you doing? Okay, real quick. Let's talk about everybody knows, but we're part of the Rising Tide Broadcast Network. Check out everything we're doing on our Facebook page. We're a group of creatives that help creatives build their business, and it's 7 days a week. Enjoy it. Entertainment and education and enlightenment. John Cashman's Comics in Bay City. They're proud sponsors. We got a lot going on with John this year. I know that May 7th is Free Comic Book Day. Coming up here, and it's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to getting down there. So make sure that if you're in Bay City or if you're in Michigan, get down to Bay City to Cashman's Comics for May 7th, because it's going to be awesome. Free Comic Book Day. I'll be there. I'll be there not as a artist capacity, just as a fan. But I'll definitely be there. So, and I know that Ken Lanier, if he's been on my show a couple times, he'll be doing a lot of artwork there too, and that's something that you guys can always check out with that. But check out everything that they're doing, cashmanscomics.com. Say hi to Petey, the guard dog, and get some comics from him. Okay, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Everybody knows why we're here, because of because of Comics Unlimited. We got a new publication coming out in May, right?
Yep.
It's going to be out soon. It's the first collaboration you and I are doing, and I am looking forward to that.
And I say you've seen it, haven't you? Most of it. It's a really good issue, really strong issue.
Fantastic.
I think it gets better every time.
I think so.
Really worth picking up,
you're such a pro at publishing, Glenn. I mean, people.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. I mean, honestly, and I'm not the only one who thinks that. I mean, there's a lot of people.
It's not what people usually say about me.
Well, opinions vary. Whatever. I've been called worse. That's what I always say. I've been thrown out of better places than this, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, real quick though, can we talk before we get started into the process?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Can we talk about the haul that we got yesterday? A couple things.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So,
it's all right.
One of the things that
I can be cheesed off again.
John Celestri's in the house. How you doing, John?
John.
There's so much that I've been going through the last couple weeks as far as my collection and what I've been finding and what I've been moving around. But I ended up a big kind of come into possession of a few things I wanted to show you, and it's going to lead into the process of the comics that we talk about. These are some of the ones that I found this one yesterday. This is number 23 Green Lantern.
Look at that.
Showcase.
Wow.
Really awesome. I mean, it's got a few things I'm going to probably get it cleaned, but this is the type of caliber stuff I'm looking for, and this is the stuff that I help people find for them, for themselves too, in their collections. I know Jody was looking. If I know that you collect something like that, I always look to help you out. You know, there's things that like Jody loves Wonder Woman, so that was one thing that he was kind enough to buy one of them from me when it went up on sale. This one was actually, you can't really see this very well, but the colors are just so vivid. The purples and the blues are just so amazing.
Somebody's taken the time on that one, haven't they?
Just unbelievable.
And with the way they do the color separations, somebody who understands the process as well.
Absolutely. I've always been a big Submariner fan anyway, but that one is number 92, Submariner Hulk. These are just a couple finds, and of course, we already know about this one.
Yeah, look at
my son got this up.
He
brought this up to me a couple days ago. So, yeah, that's just, and this is in stellar shape. This is all CG. We're going to be getting this graded. Eric Hawkins, listen up, bro. So I was going through everything that I ended up getting situated yesterday in my collection. I ended up getting a bunch of the Werewolf by Night, and I ended up getting a stack of Werewolf by Night, and in that stack, I hope everybody's sitting down. In that stack is a very amazing mint condition Werewolf by Night.
Who's
Everybody
the
knows
artist
the number?
Do you know the artist
32.
on that?
What's that?
Who's the artist on that?
Who cares? I don't even know. I don't even know. I didn't open it. I looked at the cover. I know it's from 75. I looked at it a little bit, but I'll look it up because I'm still in awe that I even have this in my possession. So this is completely getting CG'd, and this will be up for sale once I get it back. So, and I got I've got, I want to say 22, 3, 4, and then there's, I think, 20 through 45 or something like that. It's crazy. I'm getting that graded. Absolutely, Eric. That is going. I'm actually going to have them look at it to see if it has to be. There's nothing wrong with it. The colors are absolutely freaking gorgeous. We actually, there was 2 in the collection, so I'm not going to tell you who has the other one, but that one's definitely. I can't
it's
wait.
Not
to
me.
get that
it's
graded.
not me. Can I just say that it's not me who's got the other one? So
one thing that I'm enjoying though, and I'll tell you what, I'm enjoying the Moon Knight experience on TV because it's actually really, it's cool to watch Christine get excited about that and watching a comic book character turn into something to where, Don Perlin. Thank you. I'm sorry, Eric. I should have known that. Do you know Don Perlin?
Do I?
Yeah, I mean not personally, but do you know his work?
Yes, I know. Yeah,
it's a classic. I've got Eric's got the free comic book day version of that. I also have that.
I have I got some of his art.
Yeah, I've got both the copies now, and it's still cool having the original. Yeah. And when I opened it up carefully, it was 1970. I'm like, oh yes, I got the right one. But what was really cool is that some of the ones that I was looking through yesterday, these ones, like the original Sorcery from the 60s, this is awesome. I got a ton of this kind of stuff, and this is really cool because Christine likes the Sabrina stuff and all that other garbage.
I just noticed that title there, as told by Sabrina.
Yeah, right. Well, Sabrina's like, it's cool.
Like some female Uri Geller, the guy who bends the spoons and all that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But Sabrina, actually, her character is really, really cool. So I ended up, it was our anniversary yesterday. So when I come home with 4 long boxes full of vintage comics, you know,
they're not for you. They're for us.
Yeah, right. Well, the interesting thing is though we were watching Moon Knight, and I'm looking through. Okay, I got the Werewolf of the Night, and I know I got a few of them, but I'm going through. I'm like, and the dog actually came over to me because she thought I was having a heart attack. The puppy, Calypso came over. She thought I was having a heart attack, and I looked up. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! And Chris thought I spilled something on the comics or whatever. I'm like, hold on, I put that on pause, and I'm like, I gotta wear Werewolf by Night 32. She's like, yeah, so what? What's the problem? And I looked it up. I showed her. So once it's graded and everything, I showed her what it's worth, and she's like, wow. And I'm like, yeah. I said, yeah. So anyway. And I did get a ton of Archie comics. I'm really interested in that whole thing, that whole era, the Walt Disney Christmas eras where they used to build the books for Christmas, and with Chip and Dale and all the rest of these characters. And yeah, I'm interested in all that kind of stuff. So I digress. I know we're talking about, and we're not talking about me. We're talking about the process of comics.
Doesn't matter. It's all good stuff.
Okay. I feel better now. Okay. Go ahead, Glenn.
Right. Well, we were discussing last week when we decided to do this one that with respect to people, but I think a lot of people don't understand the process of how the comic gets from somebody's brain to the newsstand. Mm-hmm. And why would they, why would they care? But it's a very interesting process, I think, and it takes so long because I do know that back in the 60s, and I know I'm going back to that time, but that's when I was a kid, the process of that could be anything up to 6 months before the comic was finished and then seen on the spinner, right?
Yes.
And that process is basically, depending on whether you're doing what's called the Marvel method, which existed before somebody claimed it, but we'll call it the Marvel method, and we have a full script method. Two methods. Yeah. So in other words, somebody like Alan Moore, who everybody knows is top writer. If you get Dave Gibbons's Watchmen book, Dave Gibbons has saved all the scripts, and a lot of them are in there. And with Alan Moore being a cartoonist as well as a writer, he can visualize, and he shows, and so he can visualize it in his head. And when he types a script, he describes everything in the panel. He doesn't put Spider-Man comes through the window. He gives the dimensions of the window and how many pieces of glass shatter, which for me as an artist would drive me crazy, because there wouldn't be a lot for me to put in. But not that I wouldn't work with Alan Moore, but
right.
And Dave Gibbons is such a good artist that he can interpret it and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
But the Marvel method is this is the one that's caused so much controversy over the years with Kirby and Lee and other artists and Stan Lee, is that we won't go into that kind of political stance, if you understand what I mean about that. We'll just we'll just go with it. We'll just go with it. Stan Lee would sit with an artist, have an idea, they'd flesh out a story. The artist would then go away, and then a couple of weeks later, or in Kirby's case, 2 hours later, come back with 20 pages of artwork, telling the story, plotting the story, and then Stan Lee would dialogue it. The artist would put notes on the side of the page. Kirby did that really well. John Buscema did it as well. I don't think Ditko did, because Ditko, that was part of the dispute. But anyway, Stan Lee would look at the notes from the artist, and then he would dialogue it. Then that would be sent to a letterer who would obviously letter it. Then it would come back for corrections, and then any corrections would be corrected in the lettering in the script. And then those pages would go to the inker, say like Joe Sinnott.
Yep.
Then he would finish off the pages, and then the pages would come back and be looked at again, and any changes or something that he'd missed or whatever would be changed. And then it would go to the engraver, who would shoot it on film to make plates for the printing press. God. And then it would be printed and then obviously loaded onto the back of a wagon and taken to Illinois from New York or wherever it went. And that whole process takes so long to do, because so many, and I forgot the colouring part. So it would be colour separated, and then the process is such a long thing. There's so many people involved that I think that people just think that it's like I told you, the guy when I was 15, I was leaving school. He asked me what I wanted to be. I said a comic book artist. He said nobody does that. Nobody draws comics. Well, there's about I don't know, 60 people involved in that comic on the rack.
minimum. And
Yeah,
then you've
yeah,
got
if
the
not more.
months.
Yeah,
You've got the
that's right.
months of development. Then you got months of production. So what are they? 6 months out?
Yeah,
6 to 8 months out before they're even in the
yeah,
newsstand. Wow,
yeah. So
that's crazy.
with a large process. I mean, if you work to the Alan Moore model, the only thing that's cut out is probably uh, a greater input by the artist, because he just draws it. He doesn't
Yeah,
have to think about something, because there's the well-known story of Kirby and the Silver Surfer.
sure.
Um, the story goes, and again, I wasn't there, but the story goes that Stan Lee's phone call to Jack, or Jack phoned Stan and said, "What's the FF about this issue?" And the story goes that Stan Lee said, "Have them meet God."
Yeah.
And that was the input. Have them meet God. A couple of weeks later, Kirby sends in pages, or brings in pages, and there's God with this other guy flying around. Now,
Yeah.
at that point, the Kirbys were moving to California, and they'd been out there. And I can only imagine, nobody said anything about this to me, but I can only imagine that Jack and Roz were down on the beach. People
Yeah.
were surfing, and
Abs-
Jack's mind's going, and so that's why the surfer surfs the cosmic waves.
Sure.
And
It's brilliant. It's
brilliant,
crazy
but
brilliant. Yeah.
it must be said here that it was Lee who put Silver in it.
Oh.
Kirby brought in the Surfer,
Mm-hmm.
and Stan made it the Silver Surfer. I don't know, but but that's the so in other words, what I'm getting at is that Stan Lee didn't know anything about the Surfer. They hadn't discussed that. If they discussed anything, they hadn't discussed that, and that was the genius of Kirby, because he figured that a guy like Galactus wouldn't go around looking for planets to eat. He'd send somebody out there to find them for him, and that's what he did, and that's what he based it on. But he'd seen the surfers down on the beaches in California, and that's where he got the idea from. And what a
Makes
fantastic
sense.
idea! Cosmic waves. What a brilliant idea! What a genius!
Oh, and we talked about that. I think he's on a whole nother level when he was here.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think that he talked about it much, but I think that was.
Yeah.
Do you think his storytelling, though? Do you think Kirby's? I've heard it said where Kirby writing a story is not the same as Stan writing a story. You know what I mean? I mean, it's one thing artwork wise. I mean, art wise, I mean, there's nobody can touch Kirby. But
this is where we sort of have to get into that dark side of it, because I don't believe Stan Lee wrote a story. I think his words on the page are great. They're a bit schmaltzy and a bit twee and a bit sweet, but I think they work. So I think they're really great. But I don't think he came up with any stories really, apart from maybe monster stories and maybe the Kid Colt stories. I don't know, and I don't want to put Stan down, because
no,
he gets
he's a showman. It was he has part to play.
It's like Lennon McCartney.
I agree.
They were good, but they were better together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
but we won't go into the dispute, because it's
irrelevant.
We all know, and it's finished. Yeah. But I think that Kirby was just an absolute genius, and I think that what happened, we're moving sideways here, but what happened when he went to DC, because he could edit his own stuff, because he was literally unleashed, it wasn't as good, because I think he needed reining in, and I think Stan Lee did a good job of reining him in. But anyway.
Was the process at Marvel different than the process at DC as far as comic book production?
No, because oh, you mean
that like we were talking
Kirby,
about the process of it all, just in general. So like if you have a story, you get it in print and everything else that we talked about, shipping out everything.
As far as I understand it, a lot of the DC stuff where say Kurt Swan was doing Superman and all that, I think he worked on the most part from a script. He was given a script to draw. Kirby wasn't given a script. Kirby was just like bang, because that's what Jack means when he says he wrote them. Now you'll know this with your stuff. I know you're the writer as well, but when you're drawing it, you're writing the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jack considered himself the writer. But anyway, that's another subject. But I think we've covered that one. But but the process of putting it on the newsstand is the same. It's all to do with editorial and back and forth everywhere.
Right. Carl says this all sounds like book publishing, but perhaps faster.
I don't know.
I don't know, because I think writing sometimes is faster than doing drawing in some regards. So not all the time, but
when I write, if I'm writing one of my books, I mean, I can write, on a good day, I can write 3,000 words in a day.
Yeah,
I can't draw 3,000 pages in a day.
probably
can't. well, no, I can do more than 3 panels in a day, but you know, it
I mean,
depends what it is.
page a day is good. If you can
Yeah.
do, I mean, Kirby was kicking out five
5 a day.
five a day. It's just nuts.
I did 2 yesterday. That I was pleased with that. But
That's great.
you know, but it's not 5 a day.
No,
You know, Steve Ditko used to do 2 a day, pencil and ink.
you can't find. I mean, it's hard to find artists now that'll kick out 5 a week.
Yeah,
Very hard. And I've
Yeah.
seen, even with the digital, you know, what we can do now with digital work. I see the think about looking at the older comics, even yesterday, and then looking at the newer ones that were mixed in here and there in some of the pull boxes. It's like night and day. It's like so night and day. Anatomy's different. Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and it's cool to see the evolution of it, but it's also things are just too perfect on a lot of the new stuff, and it still kind of you know.
I look at the Silver Age, which is the stuff in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
I'll use this analogy. I call that, like, they're like vinyl records, but now they're like CDs.
Yeah.
And everything's perfect, and there's no mistakes, and it's to me, it's bland and lifeless. A lot of the artwork today.
Some of it, yeah, and it's amazing. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
some of them, it's amazing.
Brilliant.
It really is.
But it's, to me, it's shallow, and it's got no emotion in it. And you know, when I was growing up, I was fortunate because I had so many artists to look at, and all of them are so different. Like Gene Colan,
you
know, and the guys I showed you last week, Mike Noble, you know, Frank Bellamy, those people.
One of the guys that I ended up, and I'm sorry, I know I'm beating a dead horse with this Moon Knight. Right. This is Mark Spector Moon Knight. And one of the things I love about the one guy that I really like is, besides Mignola, is Bill Sienkiewicz. Yeah. And he does things that are so off the mark.
Yeah. You see, I don't think that's comic book art. I think that's illustration.
It is illustration, but I think that is that's a saving grace. It's a saving grace for me to look at that, and I'm like, wow, that's going on. This is older. I don't mean that, but some of the stuff he does now is like, wow, that is cool.
Let me just say that I wish my comics were as badly drawn as that one. Do you know what I mean? It's illustrations. You understand what I mean? So
yeah, so you've got it. You have but you can tell that you drew it though. You've got such a really good line on all your. It's amazing. Like I said, as you get older, your hand starts to shake, you know, and all that stuff. So a lot of things shake. Whatever. Eric said, "Hold on, let me post this." Eric says I can do a page a day if I have 8 hours to work on a page, but working full time hinders. Yeah, and I can understand that totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I understand that.
But I mean, that's just, you know, for sure. Carl's like, he's agreeing with them. Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's just, you know, whether you're publishing or publishing art or publishing words, I mean, it's a labor, but to see what we used to have to do with the, you know, you talked about plates and everything else that they had to make. That's one of the reasons why I'm such a bibliophile here with all my books, the old books, because it took an amazing amount of time to build, like the ones behind me here, to build these books. It's amazing what they had to go through, the lead and making each letter and then laying everything out.
Well,
God, I can't imagine what that was like.
I told you when I was 15, again, we were just before I left school, I used to do the printing for the school. I used to print the football fixtures and all that kind of thing on this great printing press. And I used to use a composing stick with tweezers and get the and that's why it's called. If people, I've said this before, but if people don't know, that's why it's called uppercase and lowercase, because the uppercase is a tray of capital letters, and the lowercase underneath it is a tray of smaller letters. And that's why it's called upper and lower case.
Interesting. I didn't know that, man. Yeah.
Well, you know
something new.
But you know what a composing stick is, don't you?
No.
Well, when you're doing movable type, like on a printing press, you've got like a frame, and that's called a bed.
Yeah.
Right. You put that down flat, and you get your composing stick, which is probably about as big as my hand. Okay. And it's about 2 inches deep and about 6 inches long. And you get some tweezers, because you don't want to get your fingers all messed up. Get tweezers, and you put the letters in backwards to read.
Right.
When they're printed, they're the right way around.
And that's just another
there's a skill in
unbelievable
there.
feat. God.
And then you get these to get the separate the rows of type. That's called leading, and it's called leading because originally it was lead.
But right, that's what I'm saying. Right, that makes
strips,
sense.
and they have different sizes. Different. You've got N's EN and M's EM, right?
Okay.
And the different sizes of leading, and they make the lines. Like
Wow.
you get 10 point on
title,
11. So you get 10 point
and
10 point typeface on 11 point leading. So and it's a Piker M and all this kind of stuff. I used to do all that. It's all
That's
brilliant
cool.
stuff. So I'm sorry.
Carl said he used to do it as well years ago.
Yeah,
that's crazy,
it's
guy. I didn't know that. Well, I mean, then you guys have another whole new appreciation for the technology today.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be, like I said, we're gods now. I mean, it's amazing what we can do. And the fact that we can take, we kind of have an advantage, and I think it's a really cool advantage, is that traditional artists, and I'm not knocking digital, but we can take our work and we can enhance it with digital enhancements, vignettes, whatever. I think it's just another stage of development for us as traditional artists. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I don't think digital's bad. I don't think digital artists are bad. I just think that when it looks too perfect, it kind of loses something.
I think that, I think about traditional artwork. I think that the computer is the CGI of today. So you can make different effects. You can make things lighter. You can, what I mean, like, don't know how to explain it. I can't explain it. If you want somebody's head to be fainter, it's difficult to draw that. But with a computer, you can cut it out and just knock it back, and make it less. That's you can. So I think the computer's the CGI.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just another creative tool, and that's dynamic. I think we can take another level to and you can save things so that, for instance, we had a traditional piece that we can make a copy of, but now digitally we can do even more than that. We can archive it. We can, So, Jody, it's the process. Artists then learn storyboarding and understood storytelling as opposed to today. This is why Marvel method is harder. That's a good point. I never thought about that way. It's interesting.
Well, this is the thing, you see, but this is to do with the storytelling. If you might be the best artist in the world, but you might not be a sequential artist. Making the story move in the panels. Do
you think comic books then, obviously with typesetting and everything else that we had to do in the day, comic books must have been a relief, really, in a great way, because you could take a word balloon, because everything was handwritten, right?
Yeah.
It was probably faster. That would make sense than what you were doing.
Yeah.
What you were doing. I mean, God, to do all that lettering and everything else, you didn't have to do that because you had one plate, right? One plate, boom, with color and whatever.
That wasn't with comics. That was with printing stuff at school and stuff like that. That was just general printing experience. But you could
comic books, though, by design, were easier to produce because they only had a plate or two plates of color or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Does that make sense or not?
Yeah. And also with you've got, like we said, you've got the penciler, the writer who puts the words in, then the letterer and the inker. They're all working on the same piece of paper, just at different times.
Yeah.
And then when it's done, and this is what I've said this before about the lettering. I've done lettering on computers and added it, so the artwork doesn't have any lettering on it, and I don't like that. That's just my opinion. I don't think it works. I think the lettering on a computer is too precise, because if you look at the background of what we're talking here, that's John Constanza lettering on that Silver Surfer there. Look how beautiful that lettering is. But look at it closely, and none of the letters are the same.
No, they're not, but they work.
But it
all works.
Beautiful. But if that was typeset, it would be perfect. Well, the drawing isn't perfect, so it makes it stand out, and I don't like that. Do you see what I mean? Plus the fact that I've said to you again, I've said it before. I love the fact that you only get a piece of artwork from that time. You've got the complete piece of artwork. You've no colours on it. Beautiful black and white, like the picture there behind, and you can hang it on the wall. The best you can do now is make a print, and anybody can have a print.
Sure. Well, that's the beauty of it, right? Put it on the desktop, right? I mean, that's the beauty.
If that's what you want to do, yeah. But not many prints going to be selling for $2 million, are there?
No, maybe not. Maybe not.
There you go. Yeah.
Jody says artists and writers are not really are not easily paired up where the work comes out stellar. The older process allowed the perfect marriage between the two. Interesting. And then Carl agrees. He says, yes, Joel, the other guy will be here on Tuesday to finish this. And I think that's, I mean, collaborations are important. I don't think that's ever going to change. I think that we still, I know you and I do a lot of stuff, our own production, our own work, but I think collaboration is still important. There's still other people have to be involved.
When I'm doing Hatch, which I'm doing a lot of at the moment, I've just shown you some pages before.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. Can't wait for that book. Yeah,
Helen has this great overview. I give her an idea, and she says, "What about?" And she comes at it from a totally different angle.
Yeah, right.
And that's the angle I always use because she has a better sense of what I'm trying to do than I do, which is incredible. Right. So there's a collaboration. That's why her name's on it, because she helps with the writing of it. She never tells me what to draw. She just helps with the writing of it.
I think with Chris, I mean, I bounce off ideas like that all the time. And the majority of the time, even saying it out loud makes it work. I'll know right away, yeah, that doesn't sound right. And she says, yeah, I don't know if I like that. She says, what if you did it that, and I understand where she's coming from. And even after the editing comes back, we reread everything, and I'm like, that still just doesn't sound right. She says, yeah. She said, maybe move this up to here, so you got to have that. And that's why I was so, adamant about talking about spouses in this type of field. You've got to have a supportive partner or spouse or whatever to get, another perspective on it. You have to. And the people that don't, I feel really, my heart goes out to them, because I think that they miss out. It's not as rich of an experience.
You've got to have whoever it is, whether it's your spouse or your friend or your dog. Right. You've got to have somebody who you trust, right? That's the key.
And that you respect, and they respect
of course,
you.
Yeah. But you've got to trust them, because they could wreck it.
Right. And I think that's what Stan and Kirby had. If we're going back to, I'm just trying to I think that they did. I think that it's like Kirby trusted Joe. I mean, he did, right? Yeah. So I think that you have to find that. And there's people in this industry I trust, you being one of them. I know that there's other people that, I don't know if I want them, you know what I mean? There's, you gotta feel comfortable in the process. Do you think that, do you think the process is better now? I know it's cleaner, or do you think it was better back in the day?
Well, I get attacked for this all the time, but
that's why I brought it up.
I don't care. You set me up, but I'll go with it. No, it's not better today. No, because it's so pristine. It's CD. It's the compact disc. I like it when you get the old comic and the register's out and you can see a bit of magenta on the side of all the characters. I think it adds to the charm. It's like the marionettes on Thunderbirds. Part of the charm is that you can see the strings.
Man. Absolutely.
We know they're not real, but they're just fantastic, and they get people today. I told you I had a former boss of mine. He hadn't seen it. His kids hadn't seen it. Said, you got to watch it. It was on Saturday, being rerun on Saturday morning. He watched it, and he said, "So, did you watch Thunderbirds?" He said, "Yeah." So, what did the kids say? His kids are like 5 and 7. Then he said, "What did the kids say?" He said, "Oh, Dad, you can see the strings." And I said, "You know something, Neil? Your kids are like you. They've got no soul."
Oh, they're just being observant. That's cool. And we probably at that time would say the same thing in the day. I don't know.
No, I remember saying to my dad, "This is fantastic." I didn't say, "I can see the strings." It wasn't the point.
I'm going to bring this up real quick.
Yeah.
So Wizard Magazine, Jody says, Wizard Magazine started to make a particular artist and writers more popular, where focus was no longer on the end product, but about their creatives. Interesting. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag for what's going on with From the Trenches of Hollywood, but that's an interesting thing, because I've noticed that in the industry now, minus Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane, that kind of thing, David Finch, not so much, but you're seeing this where it's almost like years ago, you used to have all these popular artists that were animators and they did everything. And then all of a sudden they weren't as popular. People weren't talking about it. It was more so, it was Marvel, it was DC. It doesn't really, and the artists kind of faded away. Some of them like Jim Lee and that, they stick around, but and a lot of it, I think, is because of digital work. It's almost like they had software that they could produce a certain type of art, and it didn't matter whether whoever was on the morning shift or whoever was on the evening shift.
Yeah.
It just blended because this was the comic book company's way of looking at things. It wasn't the artists, whether it was Neil Anna, whoever, back in the day, because those guys were superstars, really, when it came down to it. George Perez, everything else. Yeah, I can see the shift of, and I don't think it's a bad thing that these guys had celebrity. I think it's great. But what do you think on that? Do you think that there's
I think that's partly Stan Lee's input beginning all that. I think people knew who Kirby and Joe Simon were back in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
But I think what Stan did was tap into the popular culture at the time, the Beatles and all that big change that happened in the 60s. Like I said, a
showman. Yeah.
Yeah. And he made himself famous by putting his name, just if you look at them comics, his name's just a tiny, tiny bit bigger than Jack Kirby's. But but he made them all famous, the inker and the letterer.
Yeah, and that's and he brought to his benefit. That was one thing we talked about, you and I. This book here.
Yeah,
I opened this book, and inside, you want to tell them on the front page? I don't know if you guys have the book. It's great, but
in the credits it says Jolly Jack Kirby.
Right.
Now, as we know, it was always the letterer was always made fun of, wasn't he? If you look at those credits, the letterer was made fun of. I think you had Jovial Joe Sinnott, Jolly Jack Kirby, and Stan the Man Lee. So Stan's telling you he's the man.
He's the man, right?
Lee, right? He's the man. And you've got Jolly Jack Kirby, and Jack Kirby said to me he would never describe it. He would never describe himself as jolly. So I don't think he was too. I don't think he was too bothered by it, but he saw the funny side of it. But but Stan Lee, I think I don't know. Again, I really don't want to kick Stan, but I just wonder whether he thought I can't get away with just putting my name on it.
It wasn't really his real name either.
No.
None of them were really. Jack Kirby wasn't his real name. I mean, there's a lot of.
I think.
What do you think out of the processes? What do you think was the most difficult? Do you think it was storytelling? Do you think it was production, sales?
Yeah,
getting the thing out there.
That's a different area. I think because when it all boils down to it, if you've not got a comic, there's nothing to sell.
Okay.
Like Brian's always going on about editing my book.
Yeah, right.
And I know what a great job he did. Well, he did do a good job, but if I hadn't written the book, he wouldn't have had a job. So come on, let's just boil this down. So in other words, the most important part of a comic book, apart from all of it, is penciling it. Because you might have an idea, but if you don't draw it, you haven't got a comic book, have you?
No.
So that's the most important part, and that is probably the most laborious part as well. Because I know inking's not easy by any imagination, but you've still got something to ink. So the most important part, that's why Jack Kirby and John Buscema and John Romita play the most important role. But if you don't get somebody to sell it, then there's no point in producing it. So it's all the same thing, really, But if you have an idea, if you have an idea, let's go to the moon, and that's all you do. But Werner von Braun builds a rocket that can get you to the moon. So do you understand what I mean? Yeah. Everything comes from an idea, but but ideas can remain ideas.
Mm-hmm. So you got to have well, for lack of a better term, you've got to have the drive, and then also to get it to manifest, you've got to get the completion. You have to have
because as good as Stan Lee was, or as good as he told us he was, if those artists hadn't produced those pages, he wouldn't have had anything.
Yeah,
because he never wrote a book, did he? I know he wrote a book about my time at Marvel Comics, but he didn't write. He wanted to write the novel, didn't he? He wanted to write the great American novel.
Sure,
Stan Lee, and he never did.
No, I think that, Stan, I know Stan on camera said that Jack he said I could give him 5 pages and need it by tonight, and he'd get it to me. He
Yeah.
said that's the way he was. He was
Yeah.
prolific,
Yeah, he was incredible.
Hold on a second. Eric said that to Joe, Wizard turned creators into rock stars in the 90s, and page rates soared to ridiculous levels. It went into the heads of a lot of, well, yeah. I think that, and I know that Carl before that said, and that's the way movies are too now. Well, movies have always kind of been like that, really, Carl. I mean, that's kind of the draw. I mean, back in the day, you had Cary Grant or whoever. Those were big draws. I know that,
but they were also in good movies as well.
Well, yeah.
So again, it's the whole thing. You've got like, if you imagine, say, a film like Psycho.
Yeah.
If that hadn't have been directed by Hitchcock,
yeah.
It might have been better, but it probably wouldn't have been.
Let's look at Star Wars.
Yeah.
Star Wars had kind of not really unknowns, but I mean,
yeah.
It was.
That's right. There was only Harrison Ford who was anybody before,
right?
That, and he'd only been in a couple of things,
right?
He? Yeah.
American Graffiti and that, and it was whatever. But
well, if I ever get the chance to produce any of my books,
Alec Guinness, of course, but Alec, that was a big one. Yeah. I mean, that was a big.
But he was finished, wasn't he? He was retired.
He made more money.
Did you hear about that deal?
Yeah,
Star Wars?
Fantastic deal that he made.
He took it for union
royalties,
and then he wanted 2%
overall.
And it made him like 50 million quid.
It made him more money on that one movie than his whole career.
And he's only in it for 10 minutes.
Crazy.
So, could you imagine? But look, just imagine the other side of it.
But
just about.
Hey, Brian, how you doing? We were just talking about you.
Just imagine the other side of that little story there with Alec Guinness. Imagine the wow of George Lucas. I've got Alec Guinness at union rate, and he wants 2% of the gross, but it'll only make 50 quid.
Right.
Results.
Well, then, and if it doesn't, even better. But like that, and then they had who was a plumber? Was it Christopher Plummer? Is that who was Graham Moff Tarkin? I can't think of the guy's name.
Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing. Thank you. And he, and he's one of my favorite characters. He's so cool in that. Because I used to watch, the Saturday horror shows and watch him in all these, cheesy 60s horror movies. They were the
fantastic.
best.
With
they were the best.
What's the other guy called? What's he called? Is his name then? He's in the Christopher Lee.
Huh?
All those Christopher Lee, all those horror, those
Dracula
horror films.
Yeah, Christopher Lee was the man.
Brilliant.
He was also in Lord of the Rings.
He was. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, bad move.
The story that you don't really care for.
He was a good friend of Ian Fleming's. And they were both MI6.
Yep, isn't that crazy, man? Nuts, nuts.
There you go.
Where do you see the process of comics now? Do you think that it's going to continue on, or do you think that it's going to have a resurgence of other things?
Yeah, I think there's going to. I think in a couple of years, if not sooner, there's going to be a big boom of the indies.
I
really do.
We're seeing it now, but yeah.
And
I think it's going to be switching. I think, like I said, I don't think it's going to be indie publishing anymore. It's just going to be publishing. It's just going to be normal.
And I also think there's going to be a boom on paper. Hold it in your hands, because I think I really believe, and I have to say I hope the world is getting sick of this woke stuff.
Well, I think that it's just part of evolution. People are going to, some are going to be awake, some aren't. Some are going to say it's being awake. Some are just saying, well, okay.
I mean, like, the term woke is just bad English, isn't it?
Well, I don't usually use it. I think it's
I don't.
I woke up.
I was
that
talking,
kind of stuff. But,
I was talking to the masses. So.
Oh, okay. But I think that people that, all due respect to you, say woke, it's kind of a cop out.
I don't say it. I was being sarcastic.
Okay, I'm just saying. I am too. I'm just saying that there's people that say, you know what I mean. You got some people that use the term as a cut down, and it's like, so what? People are more aware or more intense than others. Okay, well, that's always been like that. Whether it's woke or whether it's just people being what's that?
Whether it's woke or Memorex.
Right. So
anyway,
but I know
enough of that.
there's a certain amount of balance to it all. we've got to make sure that we remember where everything was and where it's at now and where it came from and how it all mixes. It's got to be all mixed together.
Let me tell you something about this stuff. A former friend of mine, right? I used to make little short films with him. And not with him. He was sitting next to me while I made the film.
Okay.
This is true. And you know what he said to me? I made about 50 of these little short films. And one day he said to me that he said to me that he was better than I was at editing these films because he'd watched me.
Wow.
So I said, I'm done. And he didn't produce a film. How arrogant is that? What a backhanded compliment that is, that he thought he was good because he'd watched me.
Being an observer is not a person.
No.
You can read every book in the world, but there's no practical knowledge to it and practical practice in it.
I'm a better writer than you because I read your book.
It's like somebody saying, I watched your YouTube channel and I can draw better than you.
That's right. No,
I don't think, whatever. Well, I can see why you're no longer friends with that dude. Where do you think that, what do you think was the hardest thing for processes back in the day when you were doing it?
The hardest thing, getting the work. When I was doing Postman Pat and all that kind of thing, it was that kind of process where I got a full script.
Yeah.
I just produced the artwork, and then it was sent away, and the words appeared underneath and all that kind of thing. So even though I know about the process, I've never worked at every level, but I've been involved in it at every level. You know, I know what's going on. I know about deadlines and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's
I'm listening.
It's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I'm listening. Go ahead.
I just think that I think it all boils down to creativity and talent, right?
Well, and ambition. You've got to have. I know a lot of talented artists that don't have any marketing in their blood. They can't. They just don't. They'd rather sit in the basement and not draw,
that's okay.
But not tell anybody. You know.
Well, that would be the perfect artist. The perfect artist would be a person who lived till they were 90 years old, then died, and somebody went in the attic and found 1 million paintings. You know, because I know we have to eat and all that kind of thing, but when I'm drawing, I'm not thinking, oh, that'll pay for this and that'll pay for that. You know?
No, you don't think like that?
No, not all the time.
I think maybe
sometimes I do.
I think about people, how, oh man, they're going to like this, not to buy it, but they're just going to enjoy it. It's going to put smiles on their face or whatever.
Yeah,
they're going to really be interested in this idea. That's what I look at. And there'll be an interaction.
I've said to you before,
the money's a byproduct. I've said that for everything.
Yeah,
for everything I've done.
I said to you earlier that I've got some piece of artwork and hopefully I can sell them and the money will take me to Iceland. But I wasn't thinking that when I was drawing it.
Right.
I wasn't thinking this is going to get me to Iceland.
No,
because I remember Paul McCartney was interviewed and he said that him and John did go through a period because they had so much money and they had a big house and big car. They used to sit down and write the swimming pool because they knew that they were going to get a ton of money on it.
Yeah,
and they said, but that was just arrogance of youth and success. You know, that they think, well, we'll buy. Let's write my uncle's new house, that kind of thing. Corporate Ted.
Diversify. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah.
All right. So the best made comic book that you grew up with. What was the best constructed comic book? Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four. What?
I don't understand what you mean constructed. What do you mean? The best story?
So we're talking about processes. We're talking about the process.
Okay. Right.
The best constructed story. The best production art.
Well, that's easy then.
Staples in the book, everything.
Yeah, you know that it's Fantastic 451. I've told you this before. That to me was the peak of that team, which is Lee Kirby Sinnott and Rosanor Artie Simek, right?
Yeah.
I don't know who stapled it, but they did a good job, and that's the best comic ever written in my opinion, because it came, as I said, it came after Galactus and before the Black Panther. It was like a pause, and what a pause! It ended up in the negative zone, you know.
Yeah, right. So Eric, Ted's my hero. He's just like Moon Knight. So many professional identities. Well, that dude's schizophrenic. So I don't know if I'm quite that. But thank you for the compliment, I think. Good. That was a good show. That was a good show.
Let me just end on this. I think it must have been a logistical nightmare for the guys to print those comics, get them all stapled up and palleted up, and get them on those wagons and get them across the country and over the ocean to me. That's the kind of job I don't want to do. I don't want to organize that. That must be a nightmare. But the guy who's doing it does a good job.
I've got to say, one of the most enjoyable things that with our relationship that I really, really enjoy is showing the comics, the abundance of comics that I've been able to get my hands on and able to share with, as far as getting other people to finish their collections or whatever else, but to get to show you stuff that you haven't seen in, say, 40 years or 50 years.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like, what do you think? And you're like, oh my God, I had that when I was 14. And it's time travel. You go back to when you were a kid. I love that.
I'll tell you, just before we finish, can I just say this time travel?
Yes.
That's the guy. Indiegogo, In Demand, DVD of me talking to Jack Kirby. And this is the book that the camera didn't capture. So it's the whole thing. You get
the notes, the whole afternoons, the 2 afternoons that you spent there.
Yeah, and you get all that. Indiegogo, In Demand. Get it now.
It's a very good book. You guys, like I said, you know my spiel on it. I think it's setting the bar for everything.
And it's brilliantly edited by Brian Morris.
Absolutely. And there will be a Glenn and Ted tour soon. Hopefully, we're going to figure out something, right?
That'd be great,
so we got a couple things going, hopefully this fall, and there should be some things happening with that. So that's all I'm saying about it, though. Yeah, thank you guys for stopping in. If you guys are another plug here, if there's anybody that needs something for their collection, let me know. I've got a lot of influx of different books that are in now, so let me know what you're looking for, and I can see what I've got, and we'll work it. We'll see if we can't figure out some part of your collection. If you're looking for newer comics or independent comics too, go to Cashman's Comics. Check out everything John's doing. He's got just awesome. He can ship nationwide as well. So check out everything that he's doing. Okay, cool. Good. I think we're there.
Yeah, enjoyed that.
I'm going to go get this CG'd. So I'm busy. I'm busy today. So
that's going to take you to Iceland.
Yeah, right. The fulfillments went out yesterday for Grimm 101 Book 2. I've got a couple more that I've got to ship out the rest of this week. But so you know, the figures, they're drying now, so I should have them ready in a day or so to start packing up and getting them shipped out. Hopefully next week, as long as they dry. I want to make sure that everything's completely dry before I send them out, as you guys know, for everybody that invested in them. So cool, man. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, everybody, for stopping in.
Thanks, everyone.
Stick around. We'll talk after the show. So thanks again, guys. Have a great check us out on Drinking with the Davies tomorrow night. We're 7 p.m. Live. We're mixing up the Painkiller. That's all I'm going to say about it.
The best podcast on the internet.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I told Christine that. Yeah, she loves it when she doesn't realize how popular she is. There's people that it's crazy. It's fun to watch. It's just, hey, we watch your show. Hey, you know what? We'll watch your show, and it's all over the place. It's crazy.
I'm always trying to get Helen on some of these shows, but she won't do it. She said, "I don't know about comics." I said, "They don't want to talk to you about comics. They just want to look at you. They just want to see you."
It's all good. It's all good. Well, she's quite an artist, though. People have to know. Helen is brilliant.
She's an amazing
she's a great
artist.
Voiceover actress too. I mean, she did my video for Grimm, and she's fantastic. So
and
props
she did this one.
Props. Yes, exactly. You'll hear her voice here in a second. So thanks again, guys. We'll see you later. Have a great week. Read some comics.
Welcome to the Comics Unlimited podcast with your hosts, Glenn B. Fleming and Ted Davis.